Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Frontiers of Knowledge. We have often been talking about the gadgets, smartphone in particular, how it has got harmful effects and how the waves emanating from it can impact adversely heart, hip bone, and others. But one thing very curious is there that even when your phone is turned off and is near you, it can impact you adversely. I'm really amazed that an electronic gadget which has been put off but is still near your person, it can affect the working of your brain and your cognitive capabilities. Now, basically, how is that possible? I couldn't believe it, but I did believe it. After I saw what the Macomb School of Business and University of Texas had done, they had conducted a deep research. And after the research, there's no doubt at all that smartphones, whether on or off, but in case they are on your person or near you, impact your brain functioning, impair your cognitive capacity and functioning adversely. And that is even when people feel that they are giving full attention and focus on the work they are in hand, and yet the telephone impacts negatively. You know, in one experiment, they had hundreds of experiments. And in one experiment, for example, the participants were asked to sit at a computer and take a series of tests, which needed full concentration to score well and high. The tasks were geared to measure the participants' available cognitive capabilities. And cognitive capability is something which is brain's capacity to hold and process data at any given time, the way a computer processes the data. Before beginning, the participants were randomly instructed to place their smartphones either on the desk face down, or in their pocket or personal bag, or in another room. And all the participants were ordered to put the phone on the silent mode. The people did it, and when the process was being carried out, their brain waves were being watched all the time, and it was found that the participants with their phones in another room performed significantly better than those who had their phones in their pockets, and they performed a bit better than the people who had their phones on the desk. And they performed better than the people who had put their phones in a bag far away. So there were 4 categories. And the more distant the phone was, the better the performance was. So the experiment does suggest that the mere presence of smartphone reduces available capability, impairs your functioning, despite your all effort to concentrate on the job in hand. So we see a linear trend that measures your brain activity vis-a-vis smartphones availability, whether on or off. The mere presence of its being near you is a distraction. And that is where the problem is. While the rays coming from the phone can impact your heart or your bones, even when rays are not coming, the very presence is a distraction. What is happening is then your conscious mind isn't thinking about smartphone. That is agreed. But the process of requiring yourself not to think of something else uses up some of the brain's limited resources. Now, when the phone is near you, there is always a capacity, a desire that you can lift it up, pick it up, look at the screen. If it's in the other room, you're working on something, you are not going to go there. And then there was another experiment. A person's self-reported smartphone dependence was seen in that, how it is impacting their functioning of the brain and the brain's capability to process data. Researchers looked at the whole thing, and again, all the time, all the participants had their brain waves being recorded and taped. Now, in the second experiment, the participants performed the same series of computer-based tests as the first group, and they were randomly assigned to keep their smartphones either in a size or somewhere else. And the same results happened. But one thing was there, that the distance from the phone was invariably in direct inverse proportion to the functioning of the brain. So it doesn't matter whether your smartphone is turned off or turned on. What is happening is that the participants who are dependent on the smartphones always work less than the people who are not so dependent on the phone. So it doesn't matter whether it's on or off, whether it's lying face up or face down, but having a smartphone within the reach of your five senses, sense of touch, sense of feeling, sense of sight, of course, smell, sense of smell is not there, so the four senses, it reduces your capacity to perform and focus on the jobs, because your brain, or a part of it, is actively engaged not to pick up the phone. You are thinking of the phone, you are looking at it, but you are making a conscious effort not to pick up. So it's not that the participants were distracted, that they were getting notifications on the phone, that the mere presence was bad. Now, this is a shocking thing that has happened, and which is in fact a direct comment on how the human brain is impacted by the so-called progress, which is seen everywhere. And then the question arises, if the smartphone, which is the most insignificant artificial intelligence, is an example of that, impacts us so negatively, how would the brains react when we have artificial intelligence all pervading in our houses and the workspaces? Even when artificial intelligence has been imparted, the brain functioning and the human emotions, is there not a possibility that the distraction would make our brains go dormant? I have a robot who works everything for me, then do I have to think? And if I don't think, if I do not ruminate, would my brain not get rusted? This is something to be thought about, because we have also seen that rusting of the brain is in fact one of the major causes of Alzheimer's disease, which I'll take up in the next episode, how rusting affects. And you would be amazed that it's an actual rusting, though the brain is not made of iron, yet the process of oxidation takes place. And when you don't use it, the oxidation is much more rapid. And the result is Alzheimer's, dementia, and everything. So brain functioning has to be challenged. Brain needs to be challenged. And when it's challenged, the effort should be to ensure that the distractions which are beyond human control. Now, there are two types of distractions, which you can control and which you cannot control. This attraction of the smartphone can be controlled, but with a great effort. And most of the human beings, I have seen in another experiment, as a matter of fact, 73.6% respondents were not able to control their fixation with a smartphone. And one psychologist, Dr. Ward, in the University of Texas, stated that it appears that the fixation with a smartphone is the fixation of the child with the mother. The moment child looks at the mother, if she's far away, gives them certain solace, certain comfort. And that's exactly what happens. The mere sight is sufficient to make their brains revive. But the revival of the brain, or the function of the brain, is only motivated towards the cell phone, the smartphone. As a matter of fact, the human beings need to develop negative capability as far as smartphones are concerned, but that's a very difficult task. As I said, less than 30% of people can have that negative capability, which would be able to counter the effects of smartphone fixation. And this can actually result in neurosis. Now imagine you go to a party or go to a group and half of them are either talking on the phone or working on the keyboard, sending messages, receiving messages, and doing whatever is possible to do. That destroys the social interaction. So smartphone, which is a great thing, I would also love it, and I love it, and I use it. But what I do normally is that I keep the smartphone far away. I mean, say I'm sitting here and my smartphone is not in this room, because normally I let the phone, the messages go there. I purposely switch off the phone for at least 12 to 13 hours a day. That means all the night time, as soon as the evening falls, then the people can ring me up on the landline. And the computer is there. But the smartphone, as I said, has an insidious reaction in the brain, making the brain fixed on that. And that ID fix, which the psychologist says, is the main root of the brain's functioning being impaired and retarded. Now, after the experiments have been done, it has been conclusively proved that there is a definite need to ensure that smartphones are almost a necessity today, I don't deny it, but to keep them when you're working on something as far away as possible. And that distance will make your brains more nimble, more effective, and more independent of the fixation. That obsession would not be there, and that is where is the process of salvation. You see, this experiment and the series of experiments that preceded it show that all the things that are helpful to the man have some detrimental effect as well. And we are aware that everything has positive as far as negative impacts are concerned. And we as independent human beings, we as Homo sapiens, the thinking human beings, the sensible creatures of the world as we assume ourselves to be, we have got to filter the process and the use of these helpful products so that while their utility is there, their negative impact is reduced as much as possible. Think about it. Think about your smartphone as an asset most of the time, but a liability also to a great extent many times. Remove that liability and maybe you'll be better off. Thank you.